$40. That is what you just spent on another jug of weed killer, and the dandelions are already laughing at you. You walk out to your garden on a Saturday morning, coffee in your hand, the air's still cool, and for about 4 seconds, it feels good. Then you see it. The weeds are back, thicker than last week, choking the soil between your beans and your tomatoes like they own the place. And here is the thing nobody in that big box garden aisle will ever tell you. The man in the apron who sold you that jug, the bright label promising a weed-free yard in days, the lawn care industry that has trained you to reach for a spray bottle every single time, they are not on your side. They need your weeds to come back. That is the entire business model. And you feel it, don't you? That slow burn of doing the same chore over and over and watching it fail. You pull the weeds on Sunday. By Thursday, they have returned. You spray them in May. By June, the garden looks rough, patchy, embarrassing, the kind of plot the Amish 2 roads over would never let stand. Most people fight this exact battle the wrong way. They yank the tops off and leave the roots. They spray chemicals that scorch the leaves but never touch what is underground. They dump fresh mulch on top of a problem that is already growing through it, and nothing changes. The garden stays ugly. The weeds stay winning. The money keeps leaving your wallet. So here is what I am going to show you. There are 2 completely different battles happening in your garden right now, and you have been treating them as one. The first is the war on the weeds, you can already see, the one standing tall and mocking you. The second is the war on the weeds you cannot see yet, the seeds and roots waiting beneath your feet for their turn. And then there is a third thing, the old method, the one the Amish have used for generations without a single bottle of chemical, the one that is the entire reason I am making this video. I am not going to name it yet. You will know it when we get there, and it will change how you garden forever. But first, let me ask you something simple. What if everything you believe about pulling weeds is actually making your weed problem worse? Part 1 is the weed. You can see the tall green invader standing proud between your rows, because this is the one that drives you out of your mind and the one you attack first. Here is what you instinctively do. You grab the stem, you pull, and the top comes away in your hand. It feels fantastic. There is a clean little pop, a satisfying tear, and for a moment that patch of soil looks tidy. I understand the appeal completely. But here is the truth about what just happened beneath the surface. Most weeds in your garden are not annuals that die when you behead them. Things like dandelion, dock, and bindweed have a deep taproot, and on a mature dandelion, that root can drive down 10 to 12 inches into your soil. When you snap off the top, you leave that entire root system intact, and worse, you trigger it. A broken taproot does not give up. It can regenerate from a fragment as small as ½ an inch, and a single severed dandelion root will often send up 2 or 3 new crowns where there was one before. So you did not kill the weed. You pruned it. You made it bushier. That is the reframe nobody tells you in the garden aisle. Pulling the tops off perennial weeds is not weeding. It is propagation. So let me give you the methods that actually work. From the simplest to the most serious. The first and cheapest move costs you nothing but timing. You weed when the soil is wet, never when it is dry and hard. After a good rain, or the morning after you have soaked the bed with a hose for 10 minutes, the soil releases its grip and the whole root slides out clean. Get a long, narrow tool, an old screwdriver, or a proper dandelion fork that runs about $8. Drive it straight down alongside the root and lever the entire thing up in one piece. You want to see that pale tail come out with the crown? If it snaps, you stop and dig deeper, because a snapped root is a weed you will be fighting again in 11 days. The second method costs almost nothing and uses your kitchen. Boiling water, not the vinegar trick everyone repeats online. Plain boiling water straight from the kettle, poured directly onto the crown of the weed where the stem meets the soil. Water at 212 degrees Fahrenheit ruptures the cell walls of the plant on contact and cooks the top inch of root structure. For weeds growing in the cracks of a path between paving stones or along a fence line where you do not want anything growing ever, this is brutal and effective, and it costs you the price of boiling a kettle. Pour slowly, give it a count of 5 over each crown, and within a day you will watch that weed yellow, shrivel, and collapse. 2 applications, 3 days apart, and even tough perennials in a path will give up. The third method is for when the weeds have won an entire bed and you cannot dig them all out by hand. This is sheet smothering, and it works on a principle so simple people refuse to believe it. Every green plant needs sunlight to make food. Cut off the light completely and the plant burns through its stored root energy trying to reach a sun that never comes, and in 4 to 6 weeks it starves to death from the inside. You lay down plain cardboard, the brown corrugated kind from any shipping box, with the tape and labels peeled off, and you overlap the sheets by 6 inches so no light leaks through the seams. Wet it down so it stays put, then cover it with 3 inches of mulch or compost. That bed will be clear, soft, and ready to plant in about 2 months, and the cardboard rots away into the soil and feeds your worms while it works. The stakes here are real, so let me be very clear about what you lose if you keep doing it the old wrong way. Every week you spend snapping tops off perennial weeds is a week of regrowth you are personally funding. Every jug of spray you buy twice is $40. You will spend again next spring. And the bare patch where you finally ripped a weed out and left the soil naked is an open invitation for the next 10 weeds to move in. One universal habit fixes most of this: never leave soil bare. Bare soil is not empty, it is a job opening, and nature fills it within days. If this is the kind of thing nobody bothers to tell you in the garden aisle, do me one favor and subscribe, because this is exactly what every video on this channel does, plain and honest, the way it should be explained. One click, and then let me show you the bigger problem. And if you want to go even deeper into this old way of thinking, I need to tell you about something that changed how I see every inch of my yard. The same Amish principles behind everything I have shared so far, the soil work, the natural weed suppression, the living ground philosophy, are laid out in full detail in a set of guides called the Amish Lawn Guide, the Amish Soil Guide, and the Complete Amish Yard Field Edition. These are practical, plain language books that walk you through the entire system the way a neighbor who has been doing it for 200 years would explain it to you over a fence. If that is the kind of depth you are looking for, the link is in the description, and the full bundle runs $97 less than 3 jugs of the spray that was never going to solve the problem anyway. Now, let's get back to the second and equally important war happening right beneath your feet. Part 2 is a completely different enemy, and this is where most gardeners lose the war without ever realizing a war is being fought. Here is the thesis: the weeds you pull are not your problem. The weeds you cannot see are your problem. Because every time you disturb that soil, you are planting next year's invasion with your own hands. Let me explain the mistake. Because it is almost universal, and the consequence takes a full season to show up. Your soil is not just dirt. The top few inches of any garden bed hold what scientists call a seed bank, and it is staggering. A single square foot of established garden soil can hold thousands of dormant weed seeds, and some studies of farm soil have counted tens of thousands of viable weed seeds in a square yard. Those seeds can lie dormant for years. Curly dockseed can stay alive in your soil for 50 years and still sprout the day it sees light, and here is the trigger that wakes them: light and disturbance. The moment you rototill, dig over, or hoe deep into a bed to clear it, you drag a fresh layer of those buried seeds up to the surface, expose them to sunlight, and signal every one of them to germinate at once. This is why your garden looks worse 2 weeks after you have thoroughly dug it. You did not remove the weeds, you woke them up. Most people think tilling cleans a bed, but actually tilling reloads it. So how do you beat an enemy that is already in the ground waiting? You stop feeding it light, and you fight it in layers. Method 1 is the cheapest, and it is called the stale seed bed, and market gardeners swear by it. You prepare your bed, you water it, and then you wait. You do nothing for 10 to 14 days and let the top layer of weed seeds sprout into a green fuzz of seedlings. Then, instead of digging, you take a sharp hoe and skim it just a 1/4 inch under the surface on a dry, sunny day, slicing the seedlings off at the neck and leaving them to fry in the sun. You have just emptied the top layer of the seed bank without dragging up a new one. Now you plant your crops, go into a bed where the first wave of weeds is already dead, and they get a 2-week head start instead of racing the weeds from day 1. Method 2 costs a little more and buys you a whole season of quiet. This is mulching done properly, which almost nobody does. A thin scatter of mulch does nothing. To actually suppress weeds, you need a barrier thick enough that a germinating seed exhausts itself before it reaches the light. That means a minimum of 3 inches of mulch, and 4 is better laid over clean soil. Use straw, shredded bark, wood chips, or well-rotted leaf mold. The mechanism is pure physics. A tiny weed seed has only a few days of stored energy in it, and if it has to push a shoot through 3 or 4 inches of mulch to find the sun, it runs out of fuel and dies in the dark before it ever breaks through. A proper mulch layer can cut the weeds you have to pull by somewhere around 80 to 90%, and a 40-pound bale of straw covering a good-sized bed runs you about $10. That is the cheapest insurance in all of gardening. Method 3 is the one a serious grower reaches for when they want a bed completely reset, and it uses nothing but the sun. It is called solarization, and it sounds like science fiction, but it is just heat and plastic. In the hottest stretch of summer, you water the bed deeply, then stretch a sheet of clear plastic tight across the surface and bury the edges so no heat escapes. Over the next 4 to 6 weeks, the sun cooks the trapped soil, and the top 6 inches can climb past 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat does not just kill the growing weeds. It kills the seeds in the seed bank, the root fragments, and a good share of the soil-borne diseases and fungus down there too. You peel back the plastic and you have a clean, reset bed that will give you a season or 2 of dramatically fewer weeds. It costs you a roll of clear plastic about $15 to $20 and 6 weeks of patience in the heat of summer when you would not be planting much anyway. Method 1 for a fast turnaround. Method 2 for the whole season, Method 3 for a full reset. The value climbs with each one. Part 3, prevention. And this is it. This is the thing I sealed away at the very start. The old way. The method the Amish have leaned on for generations without a chemical jug in sight. It is the living mulch, the cover crop. Here is the single action that prevents both battles at once. You never ever leave your soil bare, and in the gaps between your growing seasons, you plant a crop whose only job is to hold the ground. Why does it work mechanically? Because bare soil is the enemy. Every weed strategy in nature depends on open, sunlit ground, and a thick stand of a cover crop steals that opportunity completely. It shades the surface so weed seeds never get their light signal, its roots occupy the space and drink the water the weeds would have used, and some cover crops, like rye and buckwheat, even release natural compounds from their roots that suppress nearby weed seeds from sprouting at all. The exact material is simple and cheap. A bag of winter rye, crimson clover, or buckwheat seed costs you somewhere between $4 and $8 and covers a generous home garden. You apply it by raking your empty bed smooth in early autumn or right after a harvest, scattering the seed by hand at the rate on the bag, raking it in lightly, and watering it once. It grows into a green blanket that smothers weeds all through the gap, and in spring you cut it down and let it rot right into the soil as free fertilizer. That one habit will save you the bulk of those $40 chemical jugs and easily 20 to 30 hours of weeding labor across a single year, year after year after year. So which approach is for you? If you have a small garden and a free Saturday, hand pulling on wet soil with a fork plus a thick 3-inch mulch will keep you ahead of almost everything. If you have a bigger plot that has gotten out of control, that is where the stale seed bed and a summer of solarization earn their keep before you plant a thing. And if you are tired of fighting the same war every spring and you want the truly old, truly proven way, the cover crop between seasons is the Amish answer. The one that fixes the cause instead of the symptom and asks for nothing but a few dollars of seed and a little faith in the green blanket. Now, here is the new problem. You are going to run straight into the moment you start mulching 3 and 4 inches deep and laying cardboard and planting cover crops. Slugs. Because the same thick, moist living layer that starves your weeds of light is the exact damp, dark paradise that slugs and snails dream about. And they will move in and start chewing holes in the tender leaves of the very vegetables you worked so hard to protect. It is the trade-off nobody warns you about, and it can wreck a row of seedlings in a single wet night. So tell me right now, in the comments, Are you already seeing slug damage, those ragged holes and silvery slime trails on your leaves in the morning? Just type the word slugs so I know how many of you are fighting this. And tell me whether you are mulching with straw or wood chips, because that changes the fix. The next video is going to show you exactly how to stop slugs cold without poisoning your soil or your pets using 2 cheap things you almost certainly already have in your kitchen and your shed. Subscribe so it lands in front of you the moment it goes live, because if you mulch the way I just showed you and you do not get ahead of the slugs, you will trade a weed problem for a worse one. Get this right, and your garden stops being the ugly one on the road. It becomes the one the neighbors slow down to look at, and it stays that way season after season without a single $40 jug. And let me give you one more thing before you walk back outside, because there is a detail in all of this that separates the gardeners who win from the ones who keep fighting the same losing battle every single year. Timing beats effort. I want to be very clear about that, because most people believe weeding is about how hard you work, but actually it is about when you work. A man who hand pulls for 3 hours on dry, baked soil in the middle of July will accomplish less than a man who spends 20 minutes on damp soil the morning after a rain. The soil itself decides whether your effort is rewarded or wasted. So stop fighting the calendar and start reading the ground beneath your feet. When it is soft and dark and gives up the root with a gentle tug, that is your window. When it is hard and cracked and pale, put the fork down and wait, because all you will do is snap roots and plant tomorrow's weeds. There is one more old habit worth stealing from the people who have been doing this without chemicals for 200 years. They never let a single weed go to seed. Not one. Because here is the math that should keep you motivated. A single pigweed plant left to mature can drop 100,000 seeds into your soil, and a lamb's quarters plant can drop 70,000. One weed you ignore in July becomes the seed bank you fight for the next decade. So make a deal with yourself. When you walk past a weed that is about to flower, you stop, you pull it, or you snap the seed head off before it opens, and you carry it out of the garden entirely. Do not toss it on the bed to dry. Do not leave it in the path. Get it out. That 10-second habit, done all summer long, does more to shrink your weed problem than any spray on that big box shelf. Picture your garden next spring. Clean rows, soft, dark soil between them, a green cover crop you cut down for free fertilizer, no jug in your hand, no burn in your chest. Just the quiet satisfaction of a plot that finally behaves because you stopped treating the symptom and started starving the cause. That is the old way, and now it is yours. If you're still here with me, you're my kind of gardener. Inside the Amish Garden Circle, I pick up right where we just left off and walk you through the full chemical-free weeding system. You can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be doing it alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime. Now that your garden's clear, let me show you something even better. There's a simple homemade weed killer that costs just a few dollars and works better than the store-bought kind. It's starting right here.